He's still estimated into that job and his wages are computed in that job, but I have to put him in a wage category where I can, oh, like if he's doing plowing during the winter, where I can also have him included in the winter overtime. Is that, if that, I know it's hard to understand. It's, it's a new concept.
Yes.
But as you'll see, and I was unsure how it was going to fall out. Once I did it this way, instead of just doing the large chunk of 35,000 for overtime that we used to throw in, I wanted to really know what we are spending on those. And the only way to track those is to actually create a budget for them. So that's what I've done here, putting in an estimated number of hours at an overtime rate for regular and winter. And then computing a full budget here. And again, next year we can adjust it. If we don't need as many in one, we can move it to the other. Regular wages are easy because we can go 40 hours a week for X amount of weeks that are in our 7-month period. Those are easily computable. Overtime is another thing. That's a guesstimate. We have to guess on that.
So
the sheet you have shows that it's about 800 and something more dollars than last year.
Yeah, $864. Yep.
Right. Well, I refigured it with the right wage rate. It's about $7,000 more than last year, and that's including the COLA. So in truth, it's a lot less than I would have anticipated, but that's mostly because we have new employees who are just at a lower rates. That's a function of the makeup of the department more than anything else.
So Tom, I think she's explained some of the increases, right?
Well, that was only one of that was just on the labor side of the increase.
Yeah. Okay.
And actually would have been higher. If I just applied a 6% COLA to last year's wages, the number would have been higher than this. But I'm trying to get to true wages.
Okay. The other thing that I can see with this is snow removal is the only account that the state allows us to overspend on and then make it up later. And this way you've got that figure too, without guessing what it is, right?
Correct, because you never know. I mean, every year is different.
Yeah.
Right. And so he gets a number in there, but he can overexpend that. And then at the end of the year, you can find that money in various ways. You can transfer money in, you can put it on the tax rate. There's all sorts of options, but only if you track it as snow and ice wages.
Yeah. Okay.
And vote it as a budgeted amount.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Tom, you want to explain any others that weren't covered?
Yeah, the tree, I'm keeping my trees the same at 10,000. And my public works administration, everything covered under that at 19,600.
Same.
And then when we get down to the snow and the ice for my materials and the fuel and stuff, that'll stay at the 75,390. And under the other one, the number's going to change. So I skipped over that one because that's the one, the labor and the wages are going to go in, that still have to be computed and calculated.
Okay.
And then machinery maintenance is going to stay the same at 100,000. I went up on the facilities maintenance. We moved the survey and bounds out, put it up with the highway where it was more practical because that's what it falls under. It was just put under that last year and we ran it in there. The difference of that, I upped that 49.50. One of the reasons is the cost of building materials of any sort when we do repairs around the garage, for one, and we also installed the new propane heater, and we haven't over the years burning the wood. Hopefully it's going to be the same with the propane, but when I have to purchase propane, it's more expensive than the fuel oil is. And it's hard to predict. Like right now, it's almost $4 or $4.50 a gallon.
Yeah.
So that's why I upped that line item, not knowing how much gas we're going to use. We still have the wood. It's hard to predict because the furnace was just installed a couple months ago, so we haven't had a year of use to determine a ballpark of how many gallons of gas I'm going to use.
Okay.
And then the only other one that we got is the cemeteries. And I went up I mean, the contracts are all covered for another, I think it's 2 years. But we've been trying to do improvements over the years. We don't ever have enough extra money towards the end of the year. So I upped that $5,000 to help improve. Like last year, I had enough money. I don't know if people noticed, like we did the road at West Northfield Cemetery. We redid it because we had enough left. So by upping that, for instance, I mean, some of the stuff I have planned is the repairing and painting of the fence down to the farm cemetery,
Yeah.
and all the roads need to also be repaired. And also by inheriting the new piece in Pentecost Cemetery that Mount Hermon gave us, I have to have a little bit of engineering done to break the lots up to put a road in, and we'll have to do a little construction there, but we'll do it a little at a time.
So
Okay.
Tom, for Pentecost, as far as doing that, if I make a sign, will you put it up?
Yep.
Okay, basically, actually the name of that is Fort Hill Cemetery on Pentecost. And that's
Okay.
what I'll put the sign up, because that's what it was designated back in 1985. So I'll get that straightened out, and I'll get it to you, and
Okay.
we'll try to get it done before, for the 350th.
Yep. So
Thank you.
those were the expenses that I just went up on those 2 different things. I level funded on everything else for my highways to do what we can do, and then supplement with the Chapter 90 for paving or any big jobs we do.
Okay.
And yeah,
Let me see if any of the others have any questions. Anybody have anything on the budget from Tom you want to
Pretty
ask?
well explained as far as I'm concerned.
I had one question. Winter sand went from 24,000 to 10,000. What was the thinking there?
we're making our own now.
Oh, okay, good.
We make it right at the garage. The problem we had last year, we ended up expending a little more in this budget than I anticipated, one, because there's been so much ice this year. But when we got into the July rain storm, we didn't have time to make our own sand to get my stockpile up as big as I had anticipated. But by making our own, we have our own screener out back now, so we make it when we have time.
Oh, very good.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
I have a question, Tom. Outside of your regular budget here, obviously you had to do a lot of repairs to town roads because of the weather issues last year and into this current fiscal year. Andrea stated that the bill was approximately $1.6 million. How much has been covered by the town, and how much are we looking? I know FEMA rejected us for reimbursement. How much are we looking at MEMA providing to cover the costs?
That's a question for Andrea, because I don't know as though we have any answers yet from anybody. I'm not sure. I haven't
I don't
heard
think the
of
total's
anything.
been 1.6 million. I'm not sure
That's
if I
what-
have the latest
I'm
expense.
sorry, that was what you told me, and I wrote it down last time when I
Oh.
asked. You said you had
I
it
don't-
estimated about 1.6.
Oh, I don't even remember discussing it the last meeting, but anyway, I will get the report, the latest expenditure report. I know that she's tracking it in a separate account.
Mhm.
We have heard from our legislator that she got some funding approved. What we don't know yet is the matrix that they're using to determine which town gets how much money. So we're awaiting that application, that process. I don't know whether it's going to go through MEMA or whether it's going to go through Mass Highway. So we're awaiting that process from our legislators or from the state as to how that money is going to be divvied out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Then let's go to your capital request, Tom.
Okay.
The $200,000 one first.
Yep, that's the only one that I have this year. Our truck 5 is getting old. The body is new on it. So these trucks nowadays, to replace them like for like that we have, is about $450,000. So I'm requested to purchase just a truck to haul dirt with, and strictly dirt. This isn't gonna plow snow or any of that. One of the main reasons we're having some problems with the bodies is some of the work we did in this past year with the weather that we had, the gravel that we hauled. The sander bodies are a real milder steel than a normal dump body, and they're not made for the carrying the riprap. And there was days that we had to do it to keep moving because we couldn't get hired trucks. And so what I'm proposing is the truck four that we have, the 07, the dump bodies just about rotted off of it. I've done a bunch of patching this winter to get it by. And what I'm gonna try to do, if this was to go through, if we replace the 10-wheeler, so we still have 2 of them, and take the dump body off our truck number 5, which we're in all reality, because of the age of it, they won't give us anything for a trade-in. And then I got a sander body that would fit on it. We'll strictly use it for plowing snow. So we will still have the same amount of equipment for plowing snow and also hauling dirt. The problem, why I put new or used, I can get a new one for that price. I don't want a new one because I'm having so many problems with the computers, and there's a lot of good used trucks out there from, say, California area and stuff, but dealers can find them with low mileage and they're below the computers, and we're exempt from those things. So it would definitely be a benefit to the town to just buy a used one, which would be considerably less than that price I'm asking for. I put it at 200,000. So if we end up having to buy a new one, I have money for it.
Okay. Anybody have any questions on that? Okay, you're right, that's the only capital request. However, Tom, we've got a copy of this letter from a proposal from Ty and Bond for Old Wendell Road.
That's from, yeah, that was money that was appropriated last year that we're doing some engineering studies.
Yeah,
That was
Yeah, so
already
that-
appropriated money.
Yeah, that money already
year's town meeting.
exists. You did $100,000 for Old Wendell Road
yeah.
last year or the year before?
Oh, I see. Okay,
Yeah, that was for the last year's budget.
okay.
So
When,
that's just showing you that they got it, they're starting that work and the engineering, and that's what it's, but it's already covered out of that funding.
okay, all right, I see. Where do we, Tom, what are we trying to do here? I mean, I know about I think I know about the ledges up there, and the roads have never been connected. Are we trying now to connect the 2 roads to go that far?
It's a study to see what it's gonna cost us to connect them. Because down at the bottom, there's actually been 2 house lots sold now on the undeveloped portion.
Yeah,
And they have approached me, but they have both talked to me and said it's gonna be 2 to 3 years before they're planning on building.
oh,
That's on the lower side, which isn't as bad. But there's been a gentleman that requested some work up top last year after the floods, because I'm not sure if it's his father that owned it, but he's thinking of selling the lots on the top side, which is a building lot or 2 below where is unmaintained at this time too.
oh,
So what we're doing is we're getting a study together for what's left there. That's what the money we appropriated last year, to have an engineer go in and give us an estimate of what we think it's gonna cost if we were to put it all the way through, and then we can break it out into portions of what we need to do to complete the road.
yeah. You think it's physically possible then to go over the ledges?
Oh, it's possible to do anything. It's just a lot of money.
Yeah, okay, right,
The part about it is where the ledges actually are is in between these 2 spots that I'm talking about. So as of right now, that section wouldn't be developed. We develop more of the easier stuff and work our way to that.
yeah. A few years ago, if there were a few building lots sold, they thought they were gonna build up there, and then some of them have sold the lots instead of waiting, I guess, you know?
Yeah.
I think that was what it was. Yeah, because what I've heard is the only way to get across the ledges there is with a snowmobile.
I don't even think at this point you could do that. I went up through there partway up through last year with my Jeep, and I couldn't even make it through that whole area. And I haven't been up since the July rainstorm.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I mean, it was bad prior to that. I'm sure it's 2 or 3 times worse now, I would say.
Oh my gosh. Well, but it's our obligation, I think, to do
The
something with
county
it.
road, so basically it'd be hard to abandon it. So,
Yeah,
And it also is part of our chapter 90 funding that it's a
Oh.
portion of that. So if we were to abandon it, that we're gonna, it would take away from our allotment of chapter 90 as well.
and we don't want to touch that then, so. Okay, let's see, anybody else have any comments or questions on that?
no.
Good,
Tony?
I'm good.
Okay. All right. You know, Tom, that we don't make any decisions right at this time. We wait till
Yep.
we get all the requests. So, okay, thank you for coming in. Well,
Okay.
you're not in, you're home, but thank you
All right,
for being
thanks, everybody.
on. I guess that's it.
Yeah,
Okay. All right. Bye.
bye.
Don't see the chief yet, but I just texted him to make sure to remind him you are a few minutes ahead of schedule, so.
Yeah.
Who is KB2?
that's-
Karen Boudreau.
Oh, okay.
Andrea,
did you get-
I have a fleet schedule here, but I don't, there's no date on it. So I don't
Yeah,
think,
I've asked him to update his as well. I mean, I have one from last year.
yeah,
So I asked him to update it with this recommendation. So
okay. all
You
right.
probably have last year's as well.
Andrea, did you get my email I sent to you?
Which one?
Well, the one on the sign.
Yes,
Okay,
I got it this afternoon, late this afternoon. So I will bring that probably to their next meeting with the non-departmental capital requests. There's a few still hanging out there. But you could speak to it, Dan, if you wanted to explain it.
Right
I just
now,
got the email, so I'll write it out.
yeah,
I
but they
think
don't
we've
have
spoken-
anything in front of them as far as doing that, but
No, just telling them
what
what we've been
what
talking
I'm-
about.
I've got a lot of feedback basically as far as doing that. People, you know, they don't have internet. They don't always get the newspapers as far as doing that. So I'm looking into putting a sign out in front of the town hall, a nice electrical sign that would flash on, you know, what was happening during the day, during the week, and that sort of thing. So if you drive by, you'll be able to see, or you drive in the driveway, you'll be able to see it. It's going to be somewhat on an angle. If you know where the rock, that there's a little monument out there, it's going to be somewhere in that vicinity so that we can get closer to the electrical. And we've got some quotes that I've gotten back from a company as far as doing that has done these kind of signs. So in a range around $30,000 down to around $20,000. The one I'm looking at is somewhere in the vicinity of 25, but I don't know. I'm checking to see what everything entails. I'm thinking that what would be appropriate would be to ask for around $30,000. So I'll try to get more. There's going to be more information. You'll see what we're out there. Similar sign, I guess the company did a sign down at the French King Bowling, French King Bowling Alley. It wouldn't be like that. It would be more informational sign. So, you know, it's, you know, what's happening on Monday. You know, Finance Committee, 6 p.m. Monday. You know, either Zoom or you know, in person. Hopefully in person here. But that's what I'm proposing.
For when?
Well,
For when?
he got me the quotes today, so I will put that together for your next meeting. I'll do it I'll put in a capital request. I'll have a chance to talk to Dan by then. And we can put in a capital request form. Yeah, there's been some interest expressed. Several people have asked, including the Council on Aging. This would be one of those signs where you could actually program events to come. And that would be very helpful rather than those little boards we keep putting outside that keep blowing over. And
Yeah.
he could put voting up and voter registration and the caucus. We could put meetings, we can put community events, we can put all sorts of informational. The senior center is interested in being able to post things. We could do dump closures, we could do road closures. I mean, it would just be something that would be much more visible on town hall property, right on the corner, we're thinking.
And
kind of where the
my
stone is.
concern is to make it look as nice as possible, fit in. It's not going to be something that's going to be
Right.
ugly as far as doing that. That's why, maybe some brick or a nice signage as far as doing that, nice posts and that sort of thing. So it adds to, it's not going to be bright flashing neon sign. It's going to be, pretty much just an informational sign.
Who would be in charge of putting all this
Who's in
stuff
charge
on
of upgrading it? Well,
Probably
I
Dan
anticipate.
and Sandra.
Well, I'm anticipating that that would be one of the jobs of the assistant town clerk coming in, along with myself as backup and Sandra's backup to that, because we're all backing up now as far as doing that when it comes to, unlocking and locking the doors and that sort of thing, or posting meetings and that sort of stuff. So we'll come up with a viable person to do it and make it easy for that person. And it would be all the information for all committees and, town entities, if we can do it. But primarily the information would be for what's going on in the town hall and in the town government as far as doing that. It's not going to be something that says, it's for business purposes only.
Okay, I'll be interested in the looks of the thing, because I'm getting concerned about the number of signs we have on Main Street now that are, out near the road.
Well, we'd have to bring it back beyond there, closer to the building anyway, as far as doing that, because we have to put it on our own property. And that would
Yes,
eliminate at least 3 or more signs that we put out, those mortarboard signs as far as doing that, which to me, unless it doesn't really serve that big of a purpose, and basically they start falling apart and wind blows them over. So the information is not getting out there. And I've had several citizens basically asking for something like this, especially last year when we had all the elections and everything else going on with COVID and that sort of thing. So they want to be informed, and they lack the ability to go to our website and that sort of thing, and even newspapers. Not everybody's getting newspapers these days. So I'm trying to make sure everybody has as much information as they possibly can have. So I don't get a call on someone saying, hey, what are we doing this week? It's out there. Everybody knows. I'm sorry.
I think when you step down off the last step, down onto the walkway there into town hall, I think that you're stepping onto state property, I think.
Well, it's going to be back on there. It's going to be up on, just in front of the bushes there, but on or about where there's a little rock there that's got a dedication on it of some time, that possibly that's where the time capsule is, but we're not 100% sure. So if we put it somewhere in that vicinity and we find a time capsule, that's a plus.
Yeah.
They've made it pretty clear to us that they're fine with us putting signs or anything as long as it's not in front of the sidewalk. So we suspect that we will be able to put it behind the sidewalk, which is where Dan's talking about. Sort of, if you're looking at town hall, it would be all the way to the right of the bushes before the entrance driveway. turn it on an angle and face it out to the street. So you'd really be able to see it more one direction than the other. We can't do on the green from both directions. First of all, that would be a plowing issue. We don't want to have a sign that's a foot off the road. Mass Highway will probably take it out.
Yeah.
So we're talking about back closer, put it at an angle facing out where that dedication plaque is. I just want to let you know that I just talked to the chief and he is going to be a few more minutes. He's on his way. He had a call.
And again,
so he's-
if it was a two-sided sign to see both ways, it'd be double the amount of money. So I'm trying to save
Yeah,
some
we're
money
going
here.
with one-sided.
Yeah.
So it would be facing this out at an angle.
Okay,
Lois,
yes,
may I speak?
yes,
To your point about the signs, that is a concern for the historical commission because these are all part of the historic district. And that building is part of the is actually a historic structure. So it just, and anytime we deal with MassDOT actually has to come before the historical commission to ask about signs. They had to do that with the crosswalk. So I just want to point out that it bears consultation with different folks before anything gets purchased or installed. Right? Because I would say right now, to Lois's point, there's a lot of clutter around near the Veterans Memorial entrance there that I have some concerns about as well. Thank you.
okay. Yeah, you hear about the beautiful Main Street of Northfield. People that don't live here and drive by and drive through and so forth. And that clutter, as you call it, is what I'm concerned about. Thank you. Okay, we could move ahead with the EMS. Mark is on, I see. Instead of just waiting here for the police chief to come.
Tom is on now.
What's that?
I can see Tom. He says the order.
Let me see if I can
On
take
there
that out.
now?
Yeah,
Background filter.
well, why don't, Mark, you're ready to go, you're here, so why don't we get our, mine too. You want to go ahead, Mark, with yours?
Sure.
All right.
Welcome,
Yes,
everybody.
all right, go ahead.
So obviously we're an enterprise fund, and my budget request starts off by doing the calculation on what we anticipate revenue to be based off of, statistically, just shaking the tree to figure what we think next year's revenue is going to look like. That was one of the attachments that you should have there. And we
Can I ask
anticipate
you a question, Mark? I've got two with different dates on them. And of course, obviously, I suppose the later one's dated February 28th and one was the 24th. What prompted the change?
I don't know why you have one dated today unless you just printed it today, because the only one I sent
Might
you
be
was the
print.
24th.
Might be, okay. That's all right.
I don't think
then.
there's any changes. Or
All
shouldn't
right.
be.
Okay, go ahead, Mark.
I'm
Thank you.
working off the one that I printed today, which was from the attachment that I got from Andrea. That was the after she calculated the COLA and so on and so forth, and sent the sort of final draft to
And
you
that's
guys.
that's what they have, Mark.
Okay.
So
Based
did you say the COLA is in or not? I didn't
So-
get it.
So I had initially submitted my budget without COLA. And
Okay.
then Andrea, after in consultation with you guys, is what you anticipate the COLA increase to be. She went and adjusted up the numbers based on the COLA.
Okay,
So, and that's what you should be looking at is the one that includes COLA for the EMS budget.
all right.
So with that being said, I go back to the revenue projection. we came up with a number of roughly $439,710 is what we anticipated revenue to be. And then we bring that over, carry that over to what the actual budgeted items are. Excuse me. And then I apply that money to the budget itself. Initially, I had come up with about a $12,000 or $13,000 anticipated increase to the excess revenue, meaning a profit per se, next fiscal year. However, that was before the COLA. I anticipated there to be enough money for a 3 or 4%, which is what we had historically have gotten in the past. When it went to 6%, it sort of overdrew my estimate a little bit by about $5,700, $5,800. Operationally, I believe that we can manage that deficit without an issue. Now we can explain why as we go forward here. But
I think it still says you're gonna have an excess. It's just lowered your excess to 5,700 from 12.
no, actually operating
Is
expenses.
that a negative?
The actual expenses are now 445.
Oh, yeah, I see. You're right. You're right, Mark.
Offset
I'm reading the lines
439.
backwards.
Yeah,
Yeah, I see it. It's a negative, actually.
yeah. So we, that $5,800, I think operationally we can manage without any issue. So. With that being said, we go down the line items for the budget. The first section being the salaries and wages. Obviously, again, that is the increase of the COLA is taken into consideration here. And obviously, that's a pretty big chunk at 6%. Not what we've normally been accustomed to in the past. So thank you, but cost of living is what it is. Any questions about that before we move on?
Well, can you tell us how the wages are set? How do you determine how much you're going to pay each person? I know in the other departments, when there's a new hire or something, sometimes we go through an evaluation process to set the pay rate. And I just wondered what your process is.
So we sort of have 3 different pay rates, per se, in EMS. We have the full-time employee who's, based off of the town's matrix for full-time employee, step and grade. We have the additional paramedics. If you are a paramedic and you're able to operate at the paramedic level, you get the paramedic rate, hourly rate, and then the basic EMTs are getting the basic EMT rate. And one of them is at the EMT rate is $19.68 or something like that an hour, which is equivalent to what the fire and the part-time cops, I believe, are receiving. And then the paramedics are at $24 an hour rate for the certification.
So it's dependent on their qualifications then, really?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
It's actually up slightly with the COLA, though.
Yeah, that's
It was
the correct-
$24, now it's $25.44, and it was 19, now it's 2014, and that's just based on the COLA for paramedic versus EMT.
Okay.
I have a budget sheet that computes all of the salaries and the rates and the number of hours he's anticipating. You'll see it on the side of his form, his form that he sent you computes that.
And again, that's those new rates are as of July 1st.
Yeah. Okay. All right. You want to finish up? I have a question about a number of people right now, but do you want to go through the rest of it first, or do you want to take?
Okay,
Let me ask you. I know a while back we talked about it, and you needed to put on a full-time paramedic, but I'm hearing that you have another an EMT on full-time now. Is that correct or not?
So we have multiple people that are working hours beyond the 20-hour retirement threshold, whatever it is. Unfortunately, I say unfortunately, it's very fortunate for the town is that the people who are working the hours are not looking for benefits. They just want the hourly rate and to work the hours. So we, the town, are benefiting from the fact that we have hours of coverage and not having to pay the additional expenses for the benefits.
Yeah.
However, it is starting to trigger as we continue to develop more an hourly coverage. We have more and more people that are going to be tripping over that 20 hours a week threshold. And it's the Franklin County retirement that's making the issue of it, is that because right now, if you're not a full-time over 20-hour employee, you contribute to the thing called OBRA and not to the actual county retirement. County retirement's coming back and saying, well, wait a minute, legislatively over 20 hours, you're supposed to be contributing to Franklin County retirement. I understand the whole concept of like an insurance policy, more people contributing, more hands, less work. I get it. The question is how do we satisfy Franklin County retirement and keep these people covered? Because I need these people to be covering hours to cover calls. If I don't have people to cover calls, we don't make any money. We're out of business. So I think as we continue to progressively get more and more coverage, we're going to continue to have this problem that we're going to be stepping over all the time in this 20-hour threshold for county retirement.
Now, actually, what you're saying then is some of these people that are doing a shift for you now, maybe weekly, whatever, have a full-time job somewhere else that are giving them their health insurance and stuff.
Correct. Or their spouse has a much better policy than what we would offer, and they have no interest in taking our insurance. So,
okay, all right. I had an experience last week, I guess it was, with a person in a medical field and working at a medical place. And she said, when we found out where each other lived, she said, oh, I'm an EMT there in Northfield. So apparently, occasional shift that she covers, that sort of thing. So, okay. Anybody have any questions so far? Anybody else?
Nope.
Dan?
No, I'm good.
Oh, okay. All right, Mark, go ahead, please.
So some of the utility stuff we gone up on a little bit. The electricity, obviously the cost of electricity is going up. The heating oil. I may be concerned I didn't go up enough on the heating oil after the current situation in the world right now.
Yeah.
Building maintenance and supplies, I went up a little bit more there. We've been having to do a little bit more maintenance around the station recently. Vehicle maintenance, I went up a little bit as well. I'll be honest with you, we completely blew the vehicle maintenance budget for this fiscal year between tires and brakes, and we had an electrical issue in the box of the new truck that almost burnt the truck up. We spent quite a bit of money fixing the newest truck. So, so if you see my current year budget for vehicle maintenance, you'll see that we blew that out of the water this year. Building lease, I went up. At the time that I wrote this, I wasn't quite sure what the increase was going to be. However, Sandry, I've reached out to Sandry regarding this property, obviously working with the building, the public safety building committee. Obviously we hope that in 3 years we would have a new building. So we're looking to enter into a new agreement with Sandry for at least 2 years with a third year option. And so obviously that will still continue to escalate year after year until we get done with it. As well as we pay the taxes, the water bill, all that stuff comes out of that line item as well. Diesel fuel, I went up, obviously, again, I went up, but again, with what's going on in the world, I may not have gone up enough on it. We'll see what happens there. Medical supplies that went up because the cost of everything medical, we just came through a pandemic. Everything is short and there's no big.
Both of the vehicles diesel or just one?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Are both of the vehicles diesel, just
They're
one?
they're both diesel vehicles. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Medical supplies we went up on just because the cost of medical supplies and during a pandemic, price gouging, medical as well. And then the last item here is EMS other charges. I went up significantly there. The reason for that is on the capital plan I had for this fiscal year, some money set aside possibly for pagers. However, we didn't know what the deal is going to be paging on this new radio system that we have going here. Right now, we're in between two systems, what's known as the 450 system, as well as the 800 system. Eventually, we're going to be moving everything over to 800. And the way I look at it is that there's no sense in me continuing to buy pagers that are going to on the 450 system if we're going to be moving to 800. So I've allocated an additional amount of money here so that as the old pagers die, we can end of life them and replace them with an 800. There's a pager that does both 450 and 800 megahertz. They are rather expensive. They're about $800 a piece. Instead of trying to replace or repair the old 450 pagers, we would just replace them with these new. They can do both 450 and 800, so that when we move to 800, we can use them on either system.
Do you have any of the new radios yet?
Yes. So we're completely outfitted with radios, portables and mobile radios. However, the pagers, the things that the EMTs wear on their belt to notify of a call,
Yeah.
that's the sticky wicket at this point, because there's no good technology right now, and we could get into a big long conversation about it, but basically the 450 system is not compatible with the 800, and the 800 really is not allowing them to do the toning like they do on the 450 system, so they have to run both systems side by side for a while until they can get it figured out. And there's a whole analog digital question, blah 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 blah. Anyways, the long story short is that we have a lot of pagers that are at the end of life, the Minotaur 5 pagers. I could replace them with Minotaur 6s, which are still on the 450 system, but doesn't make any sense to waste the money on that. We'll just put the money into the other pagers as they end of life. We put them out of business, and we'll go to these new pagers.
Okay.
So I'm not looking to outfit the entire department yet at this point, because we're not exactly 100% sure as to what the end goal is. So I would just buy these pages as others die. So there's a possibility that I may use every penny of that money. There's a possibility I may not use a cent of it.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Any questions? Just jump in if you have. No. Okay.
The last couple items on the bottom here, I'm proud to report is there is no principal or debt interest line item in the budget, as that the 2017 ambulance is now paid off,
Yeah.
or will be paid off.
Okay. Any questions to Mark on his budget before we get to the capital? Okay. It's just the one item, which is a big one, ambulance replace, right?
Yeah, so I'm requesting this year, I brought it forward 5 years because it was on the plan for 20-year replacement, but we're really at the 15 to replace our A1 ambulance, the 2007 van ambulance. Looking to replace that with a box similar to what we already have, the new truck. It's a much better, safer platform to provide ALS services with. The reality is that with factory lead times right now, when I wrote this, it was 12 to 14 months. We're now up to 16 to 18 months lead time necessary to get a new truck built and delivered. So I'm looking to get this approved now so that we can get this thing into the queue so that in 2 years, we'll get the truck here delivered. We are asking to take the money 100% out of our excess revenue and ambulance donation account that we have. Be 100% paid for via excess revenue, nothing from taxation is what we're asking for. Yeah, I mean, I think right now the van ambulance I have on here that we would dispose of it. However, I would say that obviously in 2 years, we're not exactly sure where we'll be, whether there'll be opportunities further into the county that we may need to utilize that as another resource vehicle or a backup truck or something. So it's just something to consider. It is a 15-year-old vehicle. It does have 32,000 miles on it. It doesn't have a lot of miles on it. It's just it's starting to rust and having some mechanical issues because it doesn't get run as much as it should, and so on and so forth. So
That's the one the police had before you did.
No, this is the 2007 van is the one that I donate. I got donations to pay for all but
Okay.
half, whatever it was.
Right, okay. Right.
Yep.
This, using your own money really for this is great, but can you tell us a little bit about how you've generated that much money now? Because it was a couple of years ago, you were having problems with
So
income wasn't what you needed. Go
yeah.
ahead.
So again, as call volume continues to increase, we're starting to generate more and more revenue between picking up Bernardston and which is another 185 or 200 calls a year, something like that. And then we just picked up Irving, where we picked up just in the last 8 months, we've done, or 6 months, we did, the first 6 months was like 65 calls or 70 calls to Irving side as well. The more the tires turn, the more money we generate. And we have to, again, it's a cart before the horse situation. You got to have the people to run the calls, but if you can't run the calls, you don't make the money to pay for the people. So the good news is that I think we're over that hump a little bit based on the fact that we still have myself and Cam and Becca in the off time doing a lot of volunteer coverage of hours that we're not paying ourselves for. The overnights are really the ones where we're making up this money and not spending it. And we're returning it back into the service for better equipment and better staffing.
Another side note too is as we become more paramedic heavy, we're not paying for intercepts, where before we had, like, if you go back statistically, like 7 years ago when we became ALS, we had to pay every single time that a paramedic jumped on our truck. Part of what we collected, we paid to another service.
So yes.
Now we collect 100% of the revenue.
Similar to what Turner's and them are feeling right now is because they're a BLS service. They're calling us for an ALS intercept. They're now paying us instead of them keeping the money in their own coffers as well. So, so we're generating more revenue by doing more calls, and it helps put money away. So, and operationally, I know that we submit a budget every year, but operationally, as I run the organization, I spend only the money that I know that we've made. I'm not looking to spend more than what we're making every year. So I always have an anticipated idea in my mind is that we're going to put some money into excess revenue for capital purchases going forward. So.
Okay. Anybody have questions about that? comments, anything?
I don't know if you guys have the actual number that was certified at the end of last fiscal year. So when I say that we're going to pay for it, certified by DOR at the end of fiscal 21 year end was $336,010. So there's enough money in there to do what we want to do. In addition to that money, there's the ambulance donation account that also has $20,000 in it, which is the 2 years of $10 donations, $10,000 donations from Bernardston for the purchase of an ambulance. So we have sufficient funds to do it.
Okay.
The only comment I have is that when I saw the other charges, it's going to spark a question, obviously. Why did it go from 1,500 to 8,000? And you explained that, but I guess you anticipate that, because that seemed to jumped out at me when I was looking over
I knew that was going to be the sticky wicket as well when it came to the budget, but we definitely have a game plan for that money, just because of the fact that, again, the pagers at the end of life, it makes no sense to add more money to other outdated equipment when we're just going to be abandoning it here shortly. So
I'm just wondering if radio equipment ought to have a separate account. That's all. The lump it under other charges just it struck me as strange. That's all.
yeah. So if we go back a few years, we had a question about pager replacement. And that was where I was told to put the pager allocation for replacement, where we're going to replace 1 or 2 a year, whatever it was. That's where that money for $1,000 was, is to replace 1 or 2 a year. And that's just where I added that, because we don't have a separate line item for pagers or radios.
Okay, thanks. But
yeah.
Okay, now let's see, staffing. We know that you can't take the truck out without having 2 people on it. Am I right?
So we cannot transport a patient
Okay.
unless we have 2 providers on the truck.
So do you still have that system where maybe one catches up with you or something and gets on the truck? Is that?
So obviously the better staffing model, especially if we are providing service to other communities, is to not have to wait the 8 or 9, 10 minutes for me to come around the river, to jump on the truck, is that we try to put 2 people here on ready to go initially to go out the door. We're very fortunate that Cam and Becca and a few other people live pretty close to the station here.
Yeah.
So we have very good response times. But we attempt to at least have 1 person in the station Monday through Sunday, 7 days a week, from 8 a.m. to midnight. And then if we can, try to get a second person in the station with them as well, because that's where the majority of our call volume is. And then the overnights, we work it out amongst ourselves for coverage. But yeah, for the most part, there's always 1 person here. We do attempt to staff it with a second person whenever we can. The good news is that through COVID, as a result of COVID, the state has relaxed its restriction on having to have a EMT basic at the minimum certification level. They are allowing first responders to staff and to drive the truck in addition to a certified person. So we try to at least have a paramedic here, have a first responder available to at least drive the truck. And that gives us the ability to cover those calls.
Okay. Anybody else? Any concerns, questions? Okay, I guess that's it. Well, there's been some concern expressed about the fact with serving other towns, and maybe this is your answer, a second vehicle, newer one, that Northfield footing the bill, but not completely.
I don't want to argue this again. We continue to have this conversation year after year. We are not taking any money from the town of Northfield. Northfield is not whatever.
There's nothing coming from taxation in this year or last year, I guess. Yeah. No, what I was thinking of was,
I would encourage those people who are saying that to you to have them come and talk directly to me so I can answer their questions for them. Because if they're going to continue to have this misconception that Northfield is footing the bill for this, they're mistaken. And we need to correct that and resolve those questions because it's incorrect.
I do want to point out one thing, Lois. I have applied for, we have no guarantee at this point, Mark is aware. I have applied for a regionalization and efficiency grant with the express purpose of studying regionalization of ambulance services. Mark has also been approached by yet another community. I'll leave it, we have not discussed it yet, but he sent me the information. So there's a huge demand for regional ambulance services, and yet another community is also on the other side of Bernardston, which is also looking for ambulance services. I don't know about joining with us particularly, but anyway, this has become a huge need. So we put in for this grant. I'm hoping the other community also put in a grant for, they have other public safety needs. I'm hoping that we're going to get funded to look at this issue of regionalization. And I just want people to be aware that if this goes to a regional ambulance service, which I know that people in this committee have talked about studying and looking at, if we do go forward with a regional ambulance service, the town of Northfield will get an assessment at some point, because we would join that region. It would no longer just be Northfield's ambulance service.
Yeah.
So, they would be expected to contribute. I don't want anyone to fly off the handle at that. We don't even know that it's going to happen. This
Correct.
is just a complete proposed, let's get a grant, let's study it, let's look at it, let's see what a region looks like. Let's see if Northfield even wants to be a region. But if we do become a region, if there is a region formed, every member has to contribute to a regional ambulance service based on whatever metrics. And this is way too early to talk about, even if it happens, because there's a whole analysis. And that's why we're applying for the grant, is to get a consultant to come in and do that work. And then we would maybe have some answers going forward on what regionalization might actually look like, and if it's a better deal for Northfield or not, and maybe be able to answer those questions kind of once and for all, and have an actual discussion on regionalization, because we kind of keep shooting darts at it without really having a good study. And it takes a professional to do a good study. It takes professional people to do a historical analysis, to do a funding analysis, to do call analysis, and to actually come up with the possible ideas and what those might look like. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that we may get a grant to look at that, and then we can do with it what we will, and we can discuss it at that point. So.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
And like Andrea did say, is that we do have, the town of Northfield has something that other communities are very jealous of. Let's put it that way. We have a paramedic ambulance service that services our communities. We're doing it for peanuts. And the fact that we have other communities that are still asking me, hey, is there an opportunity? Is there an opportunity? Obviously I'm not willing to jump into an opportunity yet until we study it and look at it and make sure that it works for us. But at the end of the day, the community, those other communities are going to call us regardless of whether we join with them or not. So why not have an agreement with them, lock them into a financial contribution of some type. And then as we study a regionalization process, we have another partner at the table. More people at the table, less food to eat. So.
And the other big quick benefit is for all this extra revenue, which you can see through our numbers that we collect by servicing other towns. It's more expensive to staff people in the station, but the benefit, especially to Northfielders, is with two people in the station, you don't have to wait for Mark to get here from, far side of Northfield. And instead, the truck rolls out quicker. You get a paramedic at your house, providing the highest level of care, doing surgery in your living room, compared to waiting 18 to 20 minutes. And when it comes to the people in Northfield, life's matter.
That was what I was thinking about. The question I got is, okay, if we're serving these other towns, and there's a need in Northfield, we're waiting in line to get service.
Not true, because we have a second truck and we have two paramedics that live down the street that are sitting at home because we have people in the station.
Right now, the second call goes to the volunteers in the community. And there will be a slight delay, but again, the slight delay for us to service our own people with a second truck is still less than waiting for a truck that you may or may not ever see from Greenfield.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Now, as you say, this comes up frequently about the service in town and the cost to Northfield itself. Remember, even though you've got revenue coming from other towns for the service there, Northfield would be furnishing the building and all that heat, lights, and all that sort of thing, right? You cover some of that. So the heat, lights, the operating expenses you cover, but the building itself we hope we're going to get one here.
yeah. I think, I think that's a conversation that we have once we build it. I don't think we should be, losing sleep over that question now, because we're years away from that question. But I think obviously, if we are an enterprise fund and we are operating, out of that building, the question will come is what, how do we want to operate it going forward? And we'll figure it out. We pay our way now, so why would we not pay it in the future? I can't say yes or no. So.
Okay. There'll be more to think about when we get to that point, having the building, so forth. Anybody else? Questions, comments? Okay, Mark, I guess that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Have a good night, everybody.
Right.
Okay.
I think John is here now, so there you are.
Okay, I'll get my papers out. Okay. He's on.
I'm on.
Okay, I guess we haven't met. I don't know if any of the others have or not, but I'm Lois Stearns, Chair of the committee. The rest of you want to introduce yourselves? Dan? He probably
Don, you know
knows
me.
you.
Hi, Dan.
Okay, Jack Spanbauer,
Jack Spanbauer?
he's a former selectman. Bernie,
I've met Chief Hall already with our Emergency Services Building
Okay.
Committee.
oh, that's right too, yeah. Sue,
Sue Kuzinski.
okay, Tony,
Tony Mateo, I've talked with John, but I haven't actually met him.
oh, okay, now you got a face with the name then. Okay, what we do, John, is with these discussions, we go through any changes. Now, I know you're new, so last year's wasn't your budget, but we're looking to see if there are any changes in the budget from the prior year, and if so, why? What has caused the change? We don't make any decisions and say tonight, yeah, okay, we'll recommend it or not. we have to listen to all the requests that there are from the departments, so forth, and then make our decisions at the end, we kind of matching up how much money we want to spend along with the requests. And that's when the decisions are made. So we're here to ask to hear your explanations of those things and listen to you. So the finance, I don't know if you've had any, finance committee role is to make recommendations to the voters on any expenditures. So that's, we're gathering our information now. So we all have copies of the budget. Andrea has given them to us. So if you want to take that and go down through and explain any changes you've made from the other prior year.
Well, first of all, let me say, for those that haven't met me, I'm John Hall. I started in December at Northfield, December 6th. Sorry, I'm late. I actually didn't get a Zoom link, so I thought we were meeting here at the station. So I was walking around the town hall saying, "Where is everyone?" So, anyways, I made it. Thankfully, Tyler upstairs gave me the Zoom link. And as far as the budget, I'm going to have to admit this, that Andrea is my go-to for this. So for this year, since it was new, Andrea did a great job and walked me through it and basically presented it to me as is. There was no major on my end in looking at it. This is all new to me because I've worked for a town before, but I've been at the university for the last like 15 years. And so doing the process this way is new to me, but it seems you almost have to have a crystal ball in this process and kind of predict what's coming up in the future, which is important because the taxpayers want to know that, where you're going to go and that you're just not spending their money without reviewing stuff and not just spending it to spend it. But that being said, it's tough for me to make too many predictions because I haven't been here that long. So I'm just going with the flow of things. And this is the year, like you'll see, the first thing is a capital request for a cruiser because it's the time to replace the cruiser per the way that it's been done in the past. I don't know if you guys have that in front of you, but that's a capital gains request. The other capital gains request is something new. So our police database is called IMC, and that allows us to, like, it's in our cruisers. So there's a laptop and you can log on to IMC, and that's how you run plates and write reports from your cruiser. And basically that's where we do all of our work. But that being said, I guess the easiest way to explain it is it's a little bit like having a Netflix where only so many people can be on it at one time. So you'll see a budget request for an additional license so that we can have more people on it at a time, because currently when one officer comes in and it overlaps with another officer, it boots them off the system. So we need another license to make sure that we can all be able to use our laptops and our cruisers at the same time, especially considering we're moving towards a new police officer who, and then we're going to anticipate to be a school resource officer in addition. So that person's going to also need access to our database that allows us to write reports, like I said, and to run records and everything we do as police officers.
So let me get that straight now. If you only had one person on duty at a time, you get by with what you have.
Yep.
But you're anticipating now a change that would put two people on duty at one time.
Yeah, and at times, sometimes there are two people on duty, but people have been just making do with the way that it was. So if there was an overlap, it'd be like one person would be kicked off it and the other one would have it over the top of the other person. A little bit more involved in that on the licenses that we have for it, but to get it up to speed, we need to have at least one more license, and so that's why I requested a little extra money to make that happen. But yes, you're right. As far as I personally, as new chief, do like to have some overlap. It allows the officer that's on to communicate to the officer that's coming on. And just in general, there'd be certain days where we should really have two police officers on. And I haven't been here that long, so I'm anticipating like specific events or like a busy weekend, it'd be important to have two officers on at the same time. But if I'm working with a full resource officer, then both of us will always be on days, presumably during the work week, and we wouldn't want to have to be fighting over who can use their laptop or not.
Okay.
Anyone else have any questions about that portion of it?
Guess not.
I can speak to
Oh.
certainly the beginning of John's budget. When you go down all the way through the first, line items, all the way through like 10, or those are all salary related. So all the differences but up to like line item number 10 through the Quinn bill, that's all calculated versus the salary, the COLA changes. So none of those are actually any requests for change. So, some of the changes that John made were just the ones that group below that, where I think he just moved some money around in some of the line items. There's not much change, but I mean, he can certainly speak to, a few little dollars here and there. He made some changes in he just maintenance and services versus professional. He wanted to switch those line items, and you can certainly speak to John why you wanted to switch those numbers.
Yes, okay. Well, first, I think Bernie had his hand up. Bernie, did you want to speak?
Yes, I have the question I have is the training budget, which you are requesting for fiscal year 23 of 14,264. Does that include the Bridge Academy training for your reserve officers?
Yes, we'll be getting some of that money back from the state when we request that also.
Okay, so that line item is the Bridge Academy included. Is that correct? Until we're reimbursed?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, training is also a function of hours. We compute that based on the number of hours and so it is COLA related as well, because you have to up the salaries for coverage and training by COLA.
Yeah, I just want to know if that included the Bridge Academy, because I see the 630 hours that are
Yes.
Budgeted. Okay.
So that was created before I was the chiefer, obviously, and that was my understanding of where that came from. And the way that we have it lined up, just because the bridge does it alphabetically, essentially, that's 2 or 3 officers every year that go to the Bridge Academy. So they don't all go at once. Depends on, I think it's A through H, then H through the next one. So the way that it falls, I have their names up here. It's not like we're doing it all at once either. It would be a bigger burden if the same.
How long are they going to continue to have Bridge Academies?
Just this one time when they go through every once, they got one opportunity and that's it. And then at that point, yeah, if you didn't go through it, then you're not going to be able to be a police officer in Massachusetts.
Yeah. Okay.
I got questions. Does the salary and wages include the COLA?
Andrea?
I just figured that out, and that's almost exclusively the COLA. That
Okay.
increase.
Yes, that is the COLA, and the difference in some of the salary changes in personnel being the chief. So that number, it won't be exactly, you're going to find it's not exactly 6%, because you're going to find that, for example, there was a longevity payment to the chief that's no longer included. And so and his contract was different than the current chief's contract. So if you try to multiply that to 6%, it's not going to actually work evenly.
That's fine.
But yes.
Now, what the info I have shows Northfield budgeting for 100% of the school resource officer. Are we reimbursed by the school district for some of that?
Yes.
Okay,
50%.
okay.
Right?
I think that I don't know what they have for next year, but their budget last year was 29,000. That's what they told me for reimbursement. But right now, we're not using a full-time officer in that position. We're just doing a part-time. So yes, they do. We budget it the full way, put them on staff here, and then they pay us back. They reimburse us for for their share of that officer.
Okay, thank you.
That's the best way to put it, for their share of the officer.
As I understand it, Jack, the current one does not want to, he has a full-time job somewhere else, not police work, as I understand it. So he is not available to do the 50% of his time in the town of Northfield. He's only doing school resource officer for us. Am I correct?
Yeah, he's a lieutenant for the Greenfield Fire Department,
Yeah.
and really financially, he's done us a huge favor by staying in this role. Can't think of another person that would have done what he's done, but the school is really appreciative of it, and obviously the police department is, and the town is, that he's committed to the end of this school year. But financially, he could work for a lot more money in Greenfield as a lieutenant at the fire department. So he's only a part-time police officer here, so he's going to invest more of his time at the fire department, and we'll have to we're hiring a police officer now in hopes of having a school resource officer take that position.
Okay.
And you'll also see that the money on there is the anticipated amount for the school resource officer.
Right. Now, what's the status right now? Are you advertising for somebody to start at the end of the school year?
So
They've interviewed.
To start and later.
So we advertised, we interviewed, we received applicants. Myself and Andrea screened the applicants. We brought the finalists to an interview process with us, and then another interview process last week with a committee that consisted of police officers and others, members of the town and members of the school. And they've approved the officer who was applying, but that officer, there's still some other variables in it. The school superintendent has to talk to the school committee to determine what hours they would like it to be before we officially offer the position to this person, and then that person will have to then determine whether they want to come and work here or not. So it's not locked in yet. It's looking good at this point, but there's a few more variables that's going to take at least two weeks to 4 weeks, I would guess.
Okay. All right. Does anyone have any further questions on John's budget? Dan?
No, I'm good. The only thing is I see that you have the constable in your budget also, as far as doing that. When I use them as far as doing that, just this is where the money will come out for elections and that sort of thing. And I would just submit their hours, just like I have in the past. Or do you want to sign off on them?
I think we had talked.
We did.
Yeah. And what was the?
Well, basically, you use them for parades and stuff, and I'll be using them for elections and warrants and that sort of thing. So again, it just gets submitted to the not treasurer, but the accountant, and she just pays them as far as doing that. So I'll just send you a copy also of their a pay voucher for what they do. So you have in your record. So I'll put that in your box when I use them for elections and that sort of thing. Does that work out?
That works for me.
Are you talking about constables?
Constables, yes. I'm sorry.
Yeah. But
They're kind of like in a little bit of a category by themselves because we both use them. I use them exclusively for town meetings, posting warrants and elections. But they're a lot less costly than having an officer at those.
Yeah.
So I appreciate them.
But they are under the chief of police.
Correct.
That new to you, John?
Having constables new to me. I mean, I've never worked with part-timers either before. So, I've introduced myself to the constables. I know a couple of them, and I'm not sure where they're going to be utilized, but in the past, the police department utilized them for the parades and things of that nature. So I would continue doing that. I think they have a great value. Like Dan said, it's less costly, and also it's great that they're members of the community that still want to be involved, and it's a way to get them involved.
Yeah, okay.
It's kind of
Anything else?
it's kind of like the way that I see it is like it's almost like an honorary role too. It's I can tell that there's some prestige behind it. I don't know if that's the right word for it or not, but it's something that's elected, and it's almost like a lifetime appointment, if I have that correctly.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So they're proud of it. So, and that's a great thing.
Yeah. Okay, then in addition to, you have tell us about the cruiser that you want to do. The new cruiser is, and check with Andrea, I think this is on the capital plan.
Yes, it is.
Yep.
Yes, it's on the capital schedule.
Time-wise. Okay, and then, but I think the difference here is that rather than trading in an old vehicle, you're talking about having the school resource officer use the oldest cruiser. Am I right?
And yeah, well, the cruiser will be juggled, so it won't necessarily. They probably won't get the oldest cruiser, but they will be juggled, and so that all the others that need them will have them. But this is just to supplement us until we come up with another way of providing a cruiser or a vehicle to the school resource officer. Because I actually don't think it's necessary for the school resource officer to have an expensive cruiser. I think like an admin vehicle that's a little bit less would be a good idea. I don't know if this is an appropriate time to talk about that, Andrea, or.
There's a request and a discussion, and I think I mentioned it. Dan will recognize it because it was mentioned at the last meeting, of potentially an administrative vehicle, which would be a much smaller, like a car vehicle, that would be paid for out of ARPA funds. That's a legitimate expense out of the American Rescue Act. And so Dan, as your representative, is on that committee. And in fact, we're meeting again this week to talk about various recommendations, and hopefully we'll be making some recommendations. I can't say which ones.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a
towards the
full-fledged
select board at some point.
It wouldn't be a full-fledged cruiser, but it would have some of the same things that the cruiser would have as far as doing capabilities for computers, that sort of thing. And probably it would be an unmarked type of vehicle, and that would probably be a vehicle that if the police department needed to go someplace and didn't want to advertise that they're using a cruiser, would probably end up using that too. We're thinking about that as a
right.
But
One of the things I had heard is you're not supposed to transport juveniles in marked police cruisers. That's been an issue in the past. We don't have that capability, and yet we have a school resource officer who'd be having a police vehicle parked on a school grounds at all times is also sometimes kind of frowned upon. So looking to use an administrative vehicle, not so much that they would be, high speed chasing police unmarked, as a police unmarked, but because they would be used in the circumstance where it's necessary to have a vehicle that's not marked, especially when you're working with children and young people and you're parked on school property, those kinds of things. And I think there was much discussion about not needing to buy one of these expensive all-wheel drive, small SUV type, this kind of SUV type vehicle to do that with a smaller, more appropriate vehicle. Also, you have to remember that if we have an officer who's in the school and there's an incident, that's where they would be able to have some of the things they might need to respond to that incident. They may not have those in the building with them. So there's some advantage to having a vehicle that officer, as the school resource officer, is using available, but not a parked labeled cruiser at all times.
Now, if you're getting this under ARPA, what about equipment? Does that cover the equipment? I mean,
yes,
you
I
buy
think
a
so.
cruiser, it's not going to have a radio and all those things
No, it would all be covered under the ARPA.
Yeah.
And the idea too is that John could speak to is this is not a vehicle that would be replaced on this, on the same kind of time frame. It'd last much, much longer because it's not going to be doing patrol work.
Yeah.
So this is the kind of vehicle that would be, 10 years as opposed to 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
it wouldn't be doing patrol, spending that kind of time out in the community and idling like our vehicles do, which put a lot of wear and tear on some of their mechanical parts. Is a very different use for this vehicle.
And just so I'm clear, the budget request for this one is for a new cruiser to replace the old cruiser. But
Yes.
we're and you had mentioned earlier that we were going to keep that one, but in fact, we're just keeping it as long as we can make it last until we get this administrative vehicle. And for all the reasons that Rhea mentioned, but from my perspective as a new police chief and also my communications with the superintendent of the school is neither of us wanted a marked cruiser there. I think the school really likes having a school resource officer. Are always going to be some people that don't like the idea of that, and so it's great that our school resource officer blends in with the community, and so it's not like the typical wearing a police uniform in the school. They more or less dress like one of the teachers, and the school vehicle would also fall in line with that kind of thought on how we approach being a part of the community at the school. And like she said, there's some sensitive equipment that the school wouldn't want inside their building that we need to have on scene. And so lastly, the quote that I got for that vehicle did include all the equipment. The only equipment, and I'm sure fire and EMS might have mentioned it to you, is that we're going to have to try to find repeaters, but we're going to do that through a grant because a repeater essentially magnifies signal of our radios so that when there's an emergency at the school that our radios work inside, which is currently not a good situation. So that's another reason why we really like this type of school officer vehicle there with a repeater. So when there's an emergency, that the repeater would then magnify the signal so that we can actually communicate in the school during an emergency.
Okay. Any further comments or questions by the finance committee? Anybody else that's on have any comment? Okay. We will take these things under consideration. Thank you, John.
Well, I really appreciate it. Nice to meet everyone that I haven't met yet.
Okay. Andrea, now we have the sewer commission. Do you know?
Yes, and I think your superintendent is here and one of your sewer commissioners is, 2 of your sewer commissioners are here.
Okay, you've got 3 people, in other words, you're saying.
Yes, I think Karen is here, Tom is here, and Isaac is here.
Okay, all right. We've all got the sewer budget here now.
Hi, how you guys doing? We had quite a few changes to the budget this year because of how last year ended. I guess if I just start at the beginning here, increasing the overtime line, since that was expelled, versus the 10,000 from last year. The other big ones are professional services, basically hiring engineers to help us. We are under a what do you call it? The non-compliancy from state.
Consent order.
Yeah, the consent order. Yeah. So basically the state is writing us to do a bunch of work, and we need engineers to do that work.
Let me back up a little bit.
Yep.
On the sewer, you mentioned your overtime. Why is that so high now?
Part of it is because I am the only full-time employee because we haven't been able to find anyone else to help out for, as much as we need. We're going to start working on trying to hire somebody again, but last year was not successful in hiring somebody. And it is getting a little tiring working every single day.
Yeah.
Um,
Tom, what's the plan? I mean, are you trying to find somebody or what?
Yes, yeah, we put it out a couple of times last year. There was no applicants because it's such a small, it's like 20 hours. Basically like an on-call. The hard part is licenses. There isn't a lot of licensed operators. They have a job with other towns that pay a lot more or whatever, and they don't want to work weekends. And that's the main thing, but we are looking into a couple different scenarios at this point. But I think there's an actual advertisement out there right now, or there's going to be one soon to try to find at least part-time for now.
I think other towns are having the same problem, aren't they?
Oh, everybody, yeah, it's not just us, it's everywhere.
Yeah. Okay, Isaac, you go ahead then. Go through it.
there is a plan for posting to go out March 21st. So hopefully that will yield some candidates soon at some point. Would be good. All right. Professional services, collection system. That's another ongoing project. You know, part of the consent order is to do work on the collection system, you know, which comprises of, you know, replacing manholes, you know, lining pipe, replacing pipe. There's a lot of work that could happen. And, you know, we need to show the state that we're trying to work on some of the stuff. You know, they're aware that these are large projects that, you know, you can't deal with overnight either, but
Okay, now I'll call them deficiencies or whatever, same thing you're talking. How, well, you have a ballpark figure on what it would cost to satisfy all their requirements.
Oh, it's not a pretty number. You know, if you go by the water management plan that they would like us to work on, you know, you're looking at millions of dollars. But you're looking at, you know, the majority of the collection system is, you know, 40 plus years old. Well, a good percentage of it is, you know, old clay pipe, AC pipe, a lot of roots and issues. You know, just in the collection system, on top of replacing manholes, doing that kind of stuff. You know, improving that is just you know, a big project.
Yeah.
You know, and then it comes down to the other part of that water management plan was working at the actual sewer plant, which is a whole other, you know, project of, you know, improving that. You know, there haven't been any major upgrades done there since the plant was built in 1972. So,
well, let me ask Andrea a question here. Andrea, what's the chance of getting some help now through ARPA for some of those big expenses?
It's possible. I think that part of what they're doing with working with an engineer is to create some of that. There's also state and federal money that's going to be available. I'm hoping, my understanding is based on some of the engineering work that they're looking to do, is that those engineers would be able to work with them and steer them into some of those grant programs and USDA loan programs in order to do those kinds of projects. That's what we're looking at potentially for the the water company. And I think the wastewater should be available for all those same things too. I'm assuming that based on the work that Ty and Bond is going to be doing for them, and I think they submitted some capital requests to you for that, that's going to be some of the recommendations, and that those consultants, of which they've also added some money to the budget, will hopefully be helping them steer them in that direction towards all those grants and the SFR whatever funds and the USDA funds and all those funding mechanisms.
And how about the college? When that plant was put in, I believe NMH went for half of it. They were desperate for service too. Is there, so now, okay, now it's down to the college. Any thought that they would do something to help out?
You're talking with the sewer plant?
Yeah,
I don't think they're anything more than a customer at this point. I mean, I don't know that anyone's from the sewer
yeah.
commissioners or
Okay,
district has approached them.
okay,
But
I think,
I've been working with them closely on the water, but I have not worked with them on sewer.
okay. It's probably a startup thing that they helped out with, I guess. They were on the committee too at that time, so, okay. Anything
you know-
else on the budget?
I mean, you know, Ty and Bond did help us secure $73,000 to help do an asset management plan, which is also part of the consent order. So we are working on stuff, but you know, USDA likes big. Well, this is what it was explained to me. Was USDA likes big projects. You know, they liked doing plants. They like, you know, they like big things. And I understand too that, you know, Northfield's a smaller town and, you know, coming up with these huge ideas, you know, for USDA, you know, the town would still need to come up with a lot of money, which, you know, I can appreciate the fact that that's not necessarily something the town can fund all at once, but, you know,
Well,
that's what they
The
like.
other thing to take into consideration, Isaac, and I'll talk to you and certainly Karen and Tom, the RCAP people that we're working with for water also do sewer. They're publicly funded. There's no cost to them. They're perfectly happy to work with you and they'll help you secure, we're looking at them now for the water district. They'll help you secure those loans. They'll go through all of that with you and they are no cost to you. They are publicly funded. I can get you the contact information for the gentleman we're working with. They're happy to help you facilitate with USDA. That is what they do for a living. And you guys have millions of dollars worth of work. All you have to be able to pay is the yearly cost of the borrowing. USDA also offers some grant funding. They can't guarantee how much that you would receive in grant funding, but some of that might be grant funded. And then the town would do a borrowing through USDA, which has the ability to borrow up to 40 years. Often making those payments affordable over a 40-year term. So I'd be happy to share with the board the gentleman who we're working with for the water district.
Andrea, this is Karen.
Yep.
If I can may I just jump in for a moment, please?
Absolutely.
Okay,
We're already working with Andrew Evans from RCAP.
Oh, excellent. That's the perfect person.
Yep, they're working on a project plan with us and I will have more information on that in probably a week or two.
Great. Then that's exactly what Isaac, I think he'll be happy to find out what they can do for you. Perfect. That's exactly what I would recommend for you. I'm glad you guys have it.
Yep, we have been talking with him and he has been helpful.
Yeah, he'll help you guys a lot in terms of what they can provide you.
Yep.
I have a question about the issue here is, when I hear that, obviously there's millions of dollars needed for basically the arteries of the sewer system, and then an unknown amount of money needed for the sewer plant, which has not been really anything done with since 1972. Did the sewer commissioners ever have a capital plan to try to look to repair, replace, or upgrade the facilities? I don't recall ever seeing one since I've been on the finance committee. And the other question I have is, how much in retained earnings does the enterprise fund actually have today?
The water management, the first part, the water management plan does have a plan for some of the plant upgrades and all that. Which part of RCAP's message was need to pursue a plan for that in the near future because of the age of the water management plan, which I think was 2019, I think was when it was written. So that's part of it, but there was a plan written for, upgrading the plant. I'm not sure, how far it's gotten beyond, just showing to the commissioners and the operators at the plant. I don't know the number off the top of my head what the sewer department has for funds. I thought Andrea told me it was around 300,000.
Yes, the sewer enterprise fund was certified at 377,251.
Okay, thank you very much.
I have a question. The capital improvements info I have, you have listed a survey of the treatment plant for $2,000. That seems awful low.
I was just going off just a rough estimate just to try to get somebody in there just to find out how much property was down there. I didn't know exactly how much it was going to cost to survey the property down there.
Jack, you're more familiar with this. What do you think it would cost?
I don't know the extent of the needs, but $2,000 is not very much.
No, I don't think so
This
either.
was just a survey. That was a survey to find our property lines because people aren't sure exactly how much we own to expand or do any of that. That's what that number was for, was just to research the deed and try to locate our property pins so we have an idea of the size of the lot.
So it's just locating the pins and kind of mapping it off, but not a full-fledged survey?
Correct.
Then it probably is enough.
Yeah, I'd say that's enough, but it's not going to be enough to locate any of the equipment and pipes and units and any of that.
Part of it was just trying to part of the plan, the water management plan, was was to upgrade clarifiers and all this business, which required, obviously more ground than is what is currently there. So we thought it would be a good idea especially for USDA to say, well, if you want us to improve the plant down here, at least we know what we own down here and we know that we need more property, which from the plans that were drawn up, it's inevitable that the sewer plant will need an additional ground down there.
Okay, thank you.
I don't want to name publicly here any of the abutters, but are we dealing with just one abutter or are there more on different sides of the property?
I think it's two abutters there. I think the railroad owns one side of where we are, and then all those fields were just bought recently back, I think it was 4 years ago or so, by Cimarosky down below it.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. Anybody? Now, you've got the capital request that Jack mentioned, the 2,000, but you've got another one for 20,000, excuse me, for the
Road.
right, the access road, repaving the access road. What's happened there?
It's just aging out, starting to fall apart. It's time for the road to get replaced. Some amount of work to get done to the road. It's falling apart. And we do get, 18-wheelers that haul the sludge out of there and chemical trucks and all that kind of stuff. So it would be helpful to get the road improved.
Now, talking about the road into the plant, or is there a road within there? Are we talking?
Just the road from the railroad tracks all the way down to the sewer plant to the gate.
So basically, a driveway in.
Basically, yes. It's already paved now.
Yeah.
Bernie, you have a comment?
I just want to ask you, do you think it's wise to pave that when you're looking at potential construction or expansion or repairs to the sewer plant? You think you would probably want to do those repairs and things first and then pave the road afterwards once you complete that work to save it from being torn apart?
Isaac, this is Karen. Can I jump in here?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. That road is in really bad shape. One of the challenges that's going on is we're having heavy trucks pulling chemicals in, taking sludge out, and some of them are bottoming out because of the disrepair of the road. If those bottom out, something happens to the truck, or God forbid, there is some sort of spill, now we've got a cleanup situation. Just trying to get equipment down in there to work on part of this plant on a road like that. I don't think I'd want to go in there.
Okay.
My only concern is you're going to invest that kind of money to, I would look at any potential small repairs before you do the construction work first. And then do and then replace the road once everything is done. I'm not saying that, the smaller areas that need to be repaired, fine, but I don't see the need for the entire driveway to be replaced.
Tom, you could chime in on this because you know about disrepair of roads and that sort of thing. So what is your take on it?
Well, I agree on both sides of it. I mean, the construction, but I think a lot of the construction that would have to happen for the size of the construction, if we do any work on the plant, we're gonna have to make a different access point because of the railroad tracks getting in there. That is one of the hardest things. You can't get equipment down there. I mean, some of these trailer trucks that are coming in, their landing gears hitting on the railroad tracks now because of the severity of the grade. And there's a lot of drainage work that has to be done. There's some stuff that can be done. It's hard to say because it is in very bad disrepair, and it's not going to last. Basically, what Isaac and everybody say, it's not going to last to the point where we're going to be able to get to where we need to get. Because the road's going to be blown out by then.
Okay, so the other thing is, this is a fair estimate of cost to bring it up to, so it's presentable or so it's a functioning driveway or road coming in?
Yes, to fix it so the trailer trucks can come over the tracks better and stuff.
Okay. So this isn't really a town road though, right? It's driveway in, kinda?
That's been a discussion since I've been here.
Well, if it's a road that we have to
some of the paperwork says it's town road all the way to the gate. Some of it states it's town road from Great Meadows, which is the road that goes down into the field, which is once you cross the railroad tracks, it turns to Great Meadow Road. From that edge in is the driveway. But the next piece of literature you look at, it says town road to sewer plant, fence, gate, which means that would be the town's responsibility. So
exactly, that's what I was getting at. Who's responsible for it? But if you can't ascertain who it is, and it's only going to cost $20,000. Again, this is, the repairs to the plant are years down the road. They're not going to happen like this year, next year, or possibly the year after that. So to go with this problem for the next 3 to 5 years doesn't seem smart. By that time, you're going to have to redo the road anyway. So
right.
But regardless, it's coming out of your enterprise fund, right? No
true.
matter when it's done.
Well, it's either coming out of the enterprise fund or it's coming out of the town, because basically if the town owns the road, it comes out of the town.
Well, okay, that'll be the question then. Where does it come from? But I guess
think
they're
we
willing
need
to
to do a
take
little
care
more
of it and do it
research
out of
on
their, well, if they're willing to take care of it, do it out of their funds, hey, I'm all for it. But
Well,
it sounds like something has to be done, and I don't think that it's, something that we should put off.
okay, when it comes down to our making a decision,
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
that'll be part of it, I think, as to where it comes from. So, okay. Anything else that you want to bring up with us?
Unless you have more questions for me. I mean,
Yeah.
the sludge removal is increased because our disposal costs have pretty much doubled. Trucking costs have increased. There's just no one wants sludge. Is basically what that boils down to. the other expenses, just to try to cover myself with anything added. There's just a lot of things that need to happen. Same with the reserve fund. Just trying to. There's a lot of work that gets done, and this is all assuming that there are no breaks. There's no
Yeah.
issues that are unforeseen.
Right.
That's basically it. But the consent order is the big thing that we need to work on. That's that's a very important issue that the state is not going to let go.
No, that's true. No,
And nothing's getting cheaper. That's the biggest issue we're seeing. The lab testing pretty much doubled. We're having to do a lot more monthly tests and weekly tests under our new permit that we just received. It was quite a bit more than the testing that was before. We have to test for PFAS now. We need to do monthly nitrogen tests. These were things that we didn't have to do before the new permit came out. And we're stuck with it because you absolutely have to do these things. But that's.
yeah. Tom, the question that comes up every year, we can't have these contractors dumping their sewage in down there.
No, that's part of some of this work that had to be done, the headworks and things like that. I mean, Isaac, there's a lot more testing involved, taking in the private septic. I mean, we've definitely talked about it. We've talked about different ways. Everything we talk about, it's a cost prior to taking it in. It be anywhere for us to install a tank, say $20,000 to $50,000 before you start taking it in. So you're not going to make any type of extra money at first to pay for these costs.
Yeah.
We've explored a lot of things, and there's nothing easy. The biggest problem, like Isaac said, is the state's mandating more and more. We're having harder times getting rid of the sludge. And, you're talking $8 to $10 million to do these upgrades, and you got 288 users that use the plan. That's been the hard decision for me to even $1 million is hard with 288 users. So somebody's got to pay for all this.
Yeah, it's 288 that we have now. Okay.
I think it's 280 or 288 is what the users are.
Close enough. Yeah. Well, I wondered because people ask that, well, why do they have to pay a hauling fee to go out of town and stuff? So
some of the bigger plants are permitted for it too. They have a whole different. You take like Montague or Greenfield; those areas they have like big storage tanks already in the ground, and that's what we would have to install to. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Isaac, inject it into the system like when you're on a lower flow, like at night. Things like that. And that's been the talk of where's the money going to come from for even to start doing some of those things.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the issues is dosing it into our system, because you're basically just dosing, anaerobic material into an aerobic plant. And Northfield being as small as it is a very small plant, low flows. So we're kind of limited on how much septage you could even accept per day. It's not impossible. It's not really recommended because you're basically, throwing in stuff that's the exact opposite of how your plant operates. But bigger towns don't notice these flow issues. It just looks like the regular stream when you're dealing with, a couple million gallons a day, not, under 100,000 gallons. Even some days it's 40 to 50,000 gallons a day. But it's not necessarily something. It's something to look at, but it's not necessarily something that could happen at this size. And then the cost too, that's associated with disposing of the, the extra sludge, the extra chemicals to, we'll need more chlorine, we'll need, more soda ash to balance the water going out of the plant. Sludge hauling goes up because you're just taking in solids. So it's, and then people say, well, how come it costs so much to dump here versus dumping somewhere else? Well, this is what it costs to dump here, because otherwise you'd be taking septage and losing money every time you took a load in, which no one wants to do that either, because that, just doesn't make sense. But it's just an ongoing issue.
Yeah, okay. All right, anybody else have any questions or comments they want to make? Okay, thank you, Tom and Isaac.
Thank you.
And
Thank you. Thank you again.
And Karen. Okay, good night.
Right.
Now, Andrea, next, other capital plans. And I think
Right, and I didn't send you because I didn't realize that was on the agenda, but I'll send it for your next meeting. I do have a request from the Concom.
Okay.
Which they want $750 to purchase hardware, I guess. I've tried to talk with them. They're talking about a Chromebook or a laptop. We have an IT vendor. We can't let a Chromebook into our system. It's just not compatible. 750 is not going to buy a computer. I mean, maybe a used laptop. So I do have some capital money to do IT, and I've been working with them, as I have been working with all the boards and committees to get them official. They're my next one. We just did the planning board to get every board and committee its own email, so that they're using one email for their board and committee that's then being archived and backed up. Finished 2 this year. I'm going to start with the Concom on getting them set up to use one. So I will probably work with them on this capital request at this point, probably not move it forward with you, because I'm still sitting on a little bit of money left over from that one you guys gave me 3 years ago. And I will work on them with whatever hardware they need to get that request done. And I'll talk to Robin and Bill about that. Northfield Elementary has submitted one for
yes, I've got
for
that.
refurbishment for the bathrooms, and I'll send that on to you. I didn't know if you wanted to have that discussion with them when they come to meet with you. And my hope was, when I put that on the agenda, that PVRS school committee doesn't vote their final budget till March 10th, but maybe they would come. I don't know, I have to reach out to the superintendent just to see if they would come even before their final budget to talk about their numbers. They should be having their public budget hearing on March 3rd, which means that they should be, in some sort of place where they could talk about budgets in the next week or so after that. And then they could come in and talk about their capital request, which is quite large. $240,000 for the renovation and refurbishment of the existing bathrooms. They have that huge bathroom issue downstairs, which has been lurking in the background now for several years. So I kind of wanted them to talk to you, to be on board to talk to you about that. And they do have a design proposal, and I'll forward all that to you guys. In terms of capital requests, besides the sign, which Dan talked about earlier, which we just got numbers for really today, that's really it outside of all the boards and committees that you've already discussed. So there's really those numbers that I will get to you for your next meeting at some point to discuss. I know you have the tech school, the rec commission, and the town clerk, which would probably, we can talk about Dan's budget, and I'll bring the accounting budget and all the standard other budgets from the town hall at that time that we haven't discussed. And Dan, we can certainly talk about the sign at that time. We'll look into it more now that we have the numbers, and talk to some other entities now that we have an idea. And then I can certainly bring you the school one. And I'm hoping that the superintendent would be happy to attend one of your meetings to at least talk about where they're at. I don't know if you've been, Lois, been getting some of their budget material, but it doesn't have a breakdown or anything yet. They've just had sort of their
Yeah.
requests to their department, from their departments,
They've-
and that just doesn't,
They're having weekly meetings, I think 3 weeks
Yeah.
total. Budget subcommittee and so forth. Yeah, I agree
Right.
with you. I think she would come if we invited her.
I do too.
She'd
Right,
be
and they can
great.
talk about that request.
Um,
I understand the urgency. I've been in that room twice to meet with them, to talk about it. And they have some real issues there. It's a real problem.
Yeah.
So,
Sound okay.
so that's
Um,
really all I've got right now in terms of other requests, just, the sign, the elementary school, and like I said, the
Okay.
Concom piece, but I'll talk to them.
two things here. We've talked in other years and at other times about whether we're going to fund equipment that will not be in the town hall. By me, a computer, printer, or whatever for some of these committees, and let them have it at home. That's an issue. And
Yep.
what are they looking for?
They're, that's why I really have to talk to them. It's been hard, Bill's
Okay,
away,
all right.
and I need to talk to Robin directly. Because I don't understand where they are with their secretarial piece, whether this is proposed for her to use to be doing their secretarial work, or whether they really are going to come on board with our boards clerk, because if they are, then they don't need this. So Robin and I need to really have a sit down and talk about that request.
Okay. All right. Oh, and you mentioned the rec commission. That's one, we don't have the budget yet, I guess.
Yeah, I'll send that over to you. I figured
Okay.
if I sent them to you at least a week ahead, then you don't get inundated, and then you have to try and find the one I sent a month ago. But yeah,
Yeah.
I'll send you their budget,
Okay.
as well as, and if I
And-
get anything for the, I haven't received anything from tech. I don't know if you have.
No, what they usually bring it with them. when they
Yeah, and
come.
I will send over the rest of the budgets you haven't seen, which is just the accountant piece, Dan's piece, the treasurer collector, ones where there's no real change, so you didn't really need to meet with the departments, but I'll
Yeah.
send the rest of them over so you can kind of see them, and talk about them,
Okay.
just for review.
Any more? Have you heard any more about the proposal we had a while back from connected to the rec commission and mosquito control?
I have not.
Okay.
Not. They've done some other things. I think with the work that B has done and some of the others, and joining the control district has kind of,
Yeah,
kind of said, let's
no need to
try
go
this
in two
approach.
ways with it.
Well, I think there's some talk about, actually getting some real numbers, knowing if we're part of the control district, actually having some idea of what's actually occurring. And obviously this is not in terms of actually being bit by a mosquito, it's more in terms of disease control. But at the same time, certainly Joe can speak to you at the time if he still feels he did not submit the article request form, which is what I recommended he do when he submitted it back in the past. He has not submitted it to me since
Oh.
that time. So I don't see that he's asking for it again. I mean, I'll certainly make a note to reach out and make sure he's not anticipating that I submitted, because he didn't. I sent the capital project request forms to every board and committee and department when I sent their budget form. What came back from him was his budget, but not a capital request. So I'm assuming he's not putting
Okay.
it forward. But I will double check with him before his appointment, just to make sure that he didn't overlook it. But it
Okay,
went out to him and I didn't hear anything back. So.
okay.
not
So
at this
that's
time.
it for other special article requests and
Yes,
capital.
there's just
Okay,
basically the school one and then this one for the sign are the two that are really out there.
okay.
Um,
And PVRS we've talked about. Do you want to do any other update right now? I mean, I.
Sure.
What? Go ahead.
I got an update on the town clock, which I think I gave at the select board meeting.
Yes,
but I'm happy to share with you guys. Basically, I got an email back. I inquired of David Smith what was going on with that project. He says that it's been challenging and gradual, but they've made some progress. They've got a formal estimate for repairing the motor from the gentleman in Greenfield. Took him 2 months to get back after he delivered the motor to him over the summer. But no one else seems willing to work on that project, so because it's unique, so they kind of had to wait. He's got an estimate from them, and he's going to repair that original motor for about $350. And then another gentleman, and he have removed, cleaned, and polished and lubricated about half of the moving parts, including the gears and the shafts and that connect to the 4 clock faces. There was a lot of heat in the clock tower over the summer, and so they haven't reinstalled them yet, but they planned to do it this fall. They're probably in by now. And then the electrician was updating the wiring and the fuse panel in the clock tower system, bringing it up to code. So then he has to wait for Brian to complete the mechanical repairs, and then they'll reconnect it all. So hopefully everything will be working fairly
Sounds-
soon.
so we've got, these people are volunteering to,
No, well, the gentleman, well, I mean, David, I think, is working with
oh, okay.
Doug Siebert, but I'm not Doug Siebert. Doug Siebert's going to be doing that work, but David LaPrade, who's an electrician, will be updating him on the wiring cost. He's doing the wiring. So he's
Yeah.
got a gentleman who's doing the motor repair and an electrician who's doing the actual wiring. He and Brian are both appear to be volunteering their time actually cleaning and lubricating at this point. So
Sounds good then.
combination of both.
Yeah, okay.
Along with
So-
that, didn't we
ahead,
have a
Tom.
discussion about the town putting some money aside for maintenance, et cetera, for the town clock? I think I only saw, the bill for electricity.
Yes,
But
that's
didn't
all
we
that's
talk
ever
about
been
that
in the
last year
budget.
some?
You may have, I don't know. I know that there's a line for electricity. There always has been. Like
I know
100
that's there, but I thought we talked some about, since it is the town clock, it's the town's responsibility to maintain it and to put some money into the budget each year.
Whoops.
Should it need regular maintenance, which it probably does at its age.
You
Right,
guys
it's kind of,
talked about that last year. You
it's
did.
kind of
Yeah.
hard, it's kind of hard to know. What we'd have to do is ask him if he wants to set up a maintenance agreement with, and I'm not sure whether it's the electrician or it's the motor guy, and
Mhm.
actually get a number. And would they become like coming yearly to do some work on it and get a number for that? Because otherwise we'd be appropriating a fund each year and then we don't know if we're just waiting for something to go wrong. But if we're doing maintenance, so we'd have to reach out to, I mean, David's sort of become the de facto clock guy. I don't know if he means to take this on. And what would that annual maintenance be? I'm not sure who that is, whether, like I said, it's the motor guy or is it the electrician guy, or I can certainly shoot him an email and see what his thoughts are. And
Yeah.
who he thinks that, who would actually do that maintenance? What is the maintenance and who would do it?
Okay, I just wanted, I didn't want us to lose
Yeah.
that. I know I saw the electricity thing in there, but I didn't see anything else, so,
Yeah, I'll shoot him an email.
thank you.
Okay, thank you. Another item, Andrea, that of course has been in the papers, I don't think anybody's missed it, the Shell Bridge.
Yeah,
And you
Well-
seem emphasizing the fact that it's not dead yet, we should say.
no,
It's-
no, it's not dead by any means. It's just because everything came in over budget, which just about every bid in the whole state is for every kind of project. It's being put through a review process by Mass DOT, which will, they'll try to figure it out. I spoke to the gentleman who's our connection. He said, I'll tell you right now, what they're going to find is it's the steel. The biggest chunk of change that increased the budget was the steel. It's a special kind of
Yeah.
steel. It's fracture tested, they x-ray, I'm not, I don't understand all that, but because of this, it is expensive steel and the cost of everything has gone through the roof. Now,
Yeah.
I'm not sure we don't have any way of knowing what they're going to recommend, whether they're going to recommend just rebidding in the hopes when steel comes down, whether they're going to try and change what the material's made of. Way too technical and way too soon to tell. They're talking about doing that review sometime between April and June. So, it's going to be spring into early summer before we even have an answer from them on what that review
Okay.
brings forth.
The big
So
thing
here we
was-
sit. But they told us that it's not a dead project. And this does happen. These reviews do happen. It's not unheard of. So we'll wait to hear. They know there's a lot of stakeholders involved. They know there's been political pressure on this. So it's certainly not going away at this point in time. But we don't know what's going to come out of the review recommendation.
The issue
if
that
anything.
concerns me a great deal, and well, our committee, I think, and people, we need to get that old one torn down. And I realize
Yes.
that when they have their equipment here for construction, they probably want to do that at this, while they're, it's got to be done before they do the new bridge, of course.
Yes, they'll be removing the old one. Yes.
And the sooner the better, because we own it. That's
Yes.
enough, I think,
Yep. And so, they're well aware of that.
Okay, we need to. It's held up this long. I'm amazed that it has, because everybody speaks about all the deterioration underneath, so forth, and
Yep.
so, okay, that's good. All right, what's the situation with the East Northfield Water District?
Okay, well, I did a big presentation with the select board. We are moving forward, working with the water company. We've got to be particularly grateful to the Thomas Aquinas College. They've put a lot of effort and work into this project, as well as RCAP, who is a nonprofit that does this kind of work for water and sewer infrastructure in smaller communities. So all of us working together we did kind of a presentation for the select board, and now we're kind of going to go further into developing this presentation and materials to bring the residents in to kind of get a look-see on what we're doing. And the look-see on what we're doing is moving towards a district. The idea of a district, obviously the residents would have to vote on that. It's a home rule petition to turn anything into a district. And the pro forma that the Thomas Aquinas College has paid to have performed, he has done a great amount of financial work, and he's willing to share more of it. We're going to try and go more in depth by doing a public forum prior to town hall, where we would present the information we have presented to more members of the community, plus additional information to kind of explain what this all looks like. There's sort of two pieces to consider here. One would be creating the district, which doesn't do anything at the point in time. It just creates the district on paper, but we need to take that step, because if and when we choose to actually move the assets into the district has to be created. So that by creating the district and the structure of the district, we would have that available. And we are simultaneously are working on a project with RCAP, which would be through the USDA, which would be potentially, will hopefully be some grant funding, some borrowing, and that financial piece will work out that the new district would be able to have a good amount of work done on it, dealing with the water quality issues, dealing with the treatment issues, and dealing with a fair amount of infrastructure improvement. And if all that financial package works out, and it looks so far on paper, having done the pro forma, that a new district could cover that cost, we would then the assets would go into the new district, and that would all occur. That would happen, and you would have a district that would receive that funding, would do that work, and would come into existence, and the residents would be the members of the district and then control the district as district members do. have
And
commissioners, et cetera. It would be
So
water
what
commissioners.
is the town's role in this district forming?
We're just trying to facilitate the process because the residents are all members of the district. 50% of the resident district is made up of residents, as the college is a resident, but 50% of the district is pretty much households. So, we're trying to work on the behalf of our residents to solve some issues that they've had, including water quality, water affordability, and try to help them formulate a district in which they will then be in control of their own assets, their own water assets.
And
That's our role.
sounds like the college is taking the lead as far as membership in the district. Am I right?
Well, we're all doing our part. Like the town meeting has to vote to form the district. So we have to be involved in the sense that an article has to be put on town meeting. The select board have to recommend that article get put on town meeting. So the town has to participate into that respect. The college has certainly taken a leadership role in terms of the financial piece. It's the chief financial officer of the college that I've been working with, and he has been receiving unbelievable information from the water company in terms of finances and studies and all of their, they've got a lot of material on capital planning and all their capital assets. And he's been reviewing all of that. He did a whole pro forma on rates, their current rate structure, on the current costs. We looked at the hypothetical, they'd hire a water superintendent. What would the staffing, what would the office costs be? Because obviously that would be shifting away from Northfield, Mount Herman School. What would that mean? Would they hire an office? Would they pay the town and share staff, kind of like the sewer district does now, pay us to be their staffing? So all of that is what he has been working on as the chief financial officer. And he runs a college, so he's got the numbers background pretty good, because that's what he does. And he's also done it out in California. They just did a whole new well system out there for their college, so he's kind of on board with this whole water thing to begin with. So they've been taking the lead on that. They hired a consulting firm. They've paid for all the cost of that. We haven't paid any of that, and they're doing all that. The East Northfield Water Company is hiring somebody to be their transition person if this moves forward, who would help the water company transition to the district. They would be covering the cost of that. That's not going to be on us. So I think in terms of a partnership, we're getting off pretty light, honestly, at this point. But it's our vote to a town meeting for the residents to decide if they want a water district. That still has to occur first and foremost.
Yeah. Okay. Any comments? Anybody have any questions?
He can say if I missed anything. She was at the presentation. It was fairly extensive as a first presentation, but there's a lot more information.
It was very thorough.
Okay.
And I think having the college as a partner now has, I think, been a major step for the town.
Yes. I would agree.
Anything else anybody wants to bring up? What is there any change in the water supply being considered?
Well, no, I mean, there's looking at wells. There's problems with the well flow. They haven't given that up yet. The studies are being done. If it remains surface water from the reservoir, it's facilities for water treatment that you're looking at. But either way, we're looking at the cost. Part of what RCAP is doing with the water company and with DEP will be just working on what is the best solution that would give the result that DEP will approve, and that will resolve that issue. And so we don't know whether it's wells, we don't know whether it's a treatment plant at this time, but it's one of the two, and it will be resolved with what DEP tells us it will be resolved with, but what's financially viable as well and funded by USDA.
Okay. Now, where does the Northfield Water Company stand
Northfield
in
Water
this?
District? Nowhere.
No, they don't want any part of it, do they?
Not to my knowledge, no.
No.
The last
That's
time I
what
reached out.
That's what I thought, yeah. All right, anybody else have any comments or questions on that? Anything else you want to upgrade us on?
I don't know if there's anything this time. I see you have on the agenda the ARPA funding. I think my ARPA committee is meeting tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken, Dan, 4
Yeah, I
o'clock.
believe we are tomorrow afternoon sometime.
B and Dan are both on that committee. So we'll be talking about that at that time. I'd like to hope we're kind of getting to the point where we don't have to spend all the money at once, but I think we'd like to start making some recommendations to at least get some of this money out to some of the possibilities. I think we've been looking at, people have had different tasks in bringing back information on possible things to recommend. The select board ultimately approves the spending, so everything will go back to the select board. It's seen as a grant, and therefore everything is spent via the select board. That's been made perfectly clear in every training I've been in.
I think any help we can provide to the sewer users would be very good, I think, you know?
Right, so we're looking at, there's a lot of
Okay.
infrastructure issues.
Okay, all right. Let's go back and do the minutes. I sent those out today. Of the meeting of the 14th.
They look fine to me.
Okay, that a motion?
I move we approve the 14th.
I'll second that.
Motion been made and seconded to approve the minutes of our February 14th meeting. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous, thank you. Okay, about any, let's see, Bernie, has your committee had any meetings since we talked about it?
Yeah, since our last meeting, we had a meeting last Wednesday, and which involved the Emergency Services Building Committee and 2 of the members of the Select Board. We had 3 architectural firms come before our group and provide presentations. And then afterwards, we discussed and evaluated their presentations and their suitability. And we then had a vote, and a architectural firm was chosen and has been forwarded which will be forwarded to the Select Board for them to come to some type of agreement for services. And that's basically it for now.
Okay, I think it was covered in the recorder. That was from your meeting probably. And they gave quite a lot of detail about the applicants. I was surprised. But okay, thank you. Tony, anything on your committee?
Yes, we met last week and did approve the proposal for the painting of the historical,
Well,
the building, the old schoolhouse number 2, which is, it's sadly in need of it, and it will be, and we were, one of the things we wanted to make sure is that it would be done this year, so it would
yeah,
be ready for next year. And we, the person that I think, I don't know if they've been contacted yet, but they said they can get to that probably as soon as it's approved, which could be as early May.
okay, that's good. Any, anything else? There was something on the communications. What was it I sent out today? Oh, anybody got whatever it was that was sent out?
Whatever it was, it's sent out. Let me see.
Send out a lot of things, but I can't remember now.
The 350th anniversary, that was sent out.
Yep, I got that.
That was it. Yes.
Yeah, I received it.
Yeah, it came out right.
Looking for committees, participation or sponsorship and that sort of thing. Okay, thank you. All right. I don't know of anything else. We're meeting again next week, and that will be the tech school, right, Andrea?
Yes, next week, your next meeting schedule is Franklin County Tech Recreation Committee, and then we'll have town clerk, treasurer, collector, accounting, kind of those last departments that don't really have much in changes, but just to look at the budgets for town hall budgets.
Okay. You'll send me that and I can put, when I do the
Yep.
agenda next week.
I will absolutely send those to you.
Yeah, okay. What, well, most of you know, you do too. The tech school procedure is to probably do a PowerPoint presentation. And last year we did them via Zoom as well, so. But let's see, when I said, yeah, they'll hand it out, I don't know if they'll send it to you ahead of time, Andrea, they might.
Yeah,
they
I don't
usually-
know. If they do, I'll send it to the committee. If not, we'll have to share screen and we'll let them present
Yeah,
it.
because they usually bring it with them, but we're 2 years now, so, okay. Any further business that we need to discuss?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn for this evening.
Okay, is there a second?
I will second that.
Okay, well, we accomplished a lot tonight with us, 4 different interviews. Any further discussion or all in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
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 Okay.
Good night, all.
Meeting is adjourned. It's 8:35.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.